Welcome to Flight Path, a brand new podcast from Tern's R&D exec team. Each week, we invite you into the cockpit for insider's look at our latest launches, current projects, and upcoming innovations. We're so excited to have you on this journey, so let's dive in. All right, we are back with the second ever Flight Path podcast. Welcome, everybody. My name is David, CEO and co-founder here at Tern, joined by two incredible co-hosts, Brad and Molly. How are you both doing this week?
Well,
I'm doing. Oh, go ahead, Molly. It's all
David,
you.
I think we have to start with you. Why are you calling in from, if people can see, your car?
Yeah, we got the mobile office set up here, as I'm calling it. We're actually in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. This basically Thursday through Monday. Unfortunately, my wife's grandfather passed away earlier this year. This is like the Memorial weekend for him, and so we got to do the podcast. And so I'm like in a campground, like connected to satellite internet here, making it happen. And this is what it's like at a startup, right? I think like all the entrepreneurs listening to the call, they know like work doesn't go anywhere. And so we're making it work. But it's a pretty funny scene. Like if you see people walking by and I'm like connected to my little like satellite dish out next to me. It's a thing. But so that's why I'm coming to you from a car today. But
So if we lose David, Brad and I are just going to take the baton and just keep going with it. So we'll see.
Make it happen. Yeah, exactly. It's, you just never know where you'll find me. How was everyone's week? Big week this week with the webinar. How was it?
Oh, it was great for me. Webinar weeks are always, I don't know, just wild. I feel like by the time we hit the webinar, I've used all of my energy, and I think what was it this week on a Tuesday or a Wednesday? Just like crammed everything into the beginning of the week as we like got super excited to prepare for the webinar, and now I've just been like coming back down off that high. I'm actually in San Francisco today. We did like a late night flight last night, my first time back since leaving in 2020, and so like yeah, just like feeling really great, excited about Tern, excited about being back here, and yeah, in a good spot. How about you, Molly?
Yeah, it was a good week. It started off on Sunday. My daughter and I got to see my husband play soccer, which was really fun. She's one, so she just kept pointing and saying "Dad, Dad" to the field. So that was great. And then yeah, it was go time with the webinar. It's always just really exciting getting everybody on a giant webinar and hearing seeing all the chats from our customers. And then we were also busy in planning mode for the next set of projects, which we kind of teased on the webinar. But that's always exciting, really getting into the details of what's coming next. So a lot of good stuff this week.
And for folks who are listening, we're going to get into this because if you haven't joined one of our webinars before, they are high energy, action packed. We pack a lot into the 60 or 90 minutes. And this past week was our webinar focused on our agency product. So we were kind of peeling the curtain back or taking the curtain away on the agency side of things. So highlighting the commission reconciliation, all of these kind of different features that went into the agency side. And so we thought we'd do a little bit of kind of a behind the scenes on that webinar for folks that are listening here. And, maybe starting, Molly, with you, like a lot went into this webinar on the product side. Can you kind of bring that to life for us? Like what does prep look like for you for these things?
Yeah, so one of the big things we really wanted to do actually was make sure that the agency product was out of the open beta before the webinar. So that actually last week, there was just a lot of testing and making sure that we were truly ready to go to launch to everybody. So that if you come off of the webinar, you have access to those agency features right away. So that was just a lot of testing and documentation and making sure we were really ready to go there. And then leading up this week, we wanted to surprise everyone with a new feature that people would probably hear about from the first time on the webinar, which was trip collaboration. And we'll talk more about that later in the podcast. But a lot of testing the surface area there is crazy because like you're able to, as a person not owning the trip, do a bunch of different things, which we'll talk about on the trip itself. And so just a lot of surface area for testing and documentation. And we actually launched it 2 hours before the webinar. So we pulled it off and always really exciting and fun to surprise people with a new feature on the webinar itself.
And the chat was so hype when people saw that, and just like what you said, we'll talk about all the implications of what that means for Tern and for people who are using it. But such a big feature and a ton of testing that went into it. Brad, what does the prep look like for you?
Oh, did we lose? Oh.
Well, okay, we're maybe back. Brad, what does the prep look like on your side for the webinar?
On my side of the webinar, I mean, this one especially, the prep was mostly about making sure that we had a demo prepared for the future features that we're building, going to be shipping. So, of course, we designed and built a lot of the stuff that we actually demoed, that David demoed as part of the webinar itself. But we have new things that we're planning on building that we really want to make sure we bring to life effectively for folks on the call, to not just be like, okay, talking about what we're going to do, but actually being able to show, and to be able to show how something's going to work before we've actually built it requires a lot of back behind the scenes kind of like wiring together of mocks, making sure that something looks realistic, you can understand what that experience is going to be without writing actually any code. So I get to kind of put my engineer hat on a little bit, kind of like make it look like it's working, and make sure that we're bringing the kind of future features to life in that way. And this time that was really around commission reconciliation, starting from like a supplier payment, which this is kind of the less exciting piece. But the thing that is hardest to get right there is making sure the data is realistic. There's a lot of like, we're talking about basically accounting for finances and like line items on a supplier invoice. And there's just a lot of like math you're doing, making sure all the data looks good and people can follow the flow. So not the most exciting part of the job, but kind of the most important thing to make sure that, again, you can see what we're planning on building and make sure it actually makes sense and like functions like a real feature would.
I love you sharing that, right? Because there's like so much, like we click through the mocks and people are like, oh, like, yeah, this looks like, but like literally every single line, every number there, right? You're kind of designing to make sure that it flows with the rest of the narrative. So that was, I think, a labor of love. I think on my side, it's really interesting. These webinars are really fun because you're demoing all these new features. But this one was actually kind of tough to figure out that demo flow because there's so many different personas that we're jumping between. We had the IC advisor. We had an agency owner that was just setting up an agency for the first time. Then we had an agency owner that was more established and was like looking at reports and content sharing and all these kind of different pieces. And kind of figuring out the right story arc to be able to switch between those without creating a bunch of confusion was took a lot of prep and a lot of practice. And I think there's probably still opportunities we could have done it better. But that's a little bit of kind of just the behind the scenes of what goes into these webinars. And one of the reasons I think that they're kind of so fun, hopefully from an audience perspective, is it's like a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into making them happen. Maybe zooming out for those folks that weren't maybe on the webinar, weren't listening in. We talked a little bit about what it is, but it really centered on this kind of agency product and the way that we're thinking that. Maybe Molly, throwing it over to you, like, why was this something that we decided to build in the first place? Like, there's obviously even more that we have planned on the IC level. Why build the agency product, and like, what are some of the things you're excited about for it?
Yeah, so I think, as a lot of you know, we spend a lot of our time talking to advisors and talking to just people in the space. And the one thing that we just consistently heard over and over, not only for advisor tools, which, loud and clear, we have this system fragmentation problem where I'm using Calendly for this and another travel planning platform for this. And, you're kind of stringing together all of these different platforms. We heard the same thing when it came to working with your agencies. So you would have to use a different system to enter commission data for your agency owner to report and to run commission reconciliation and actually get paid and all of that stuff. And so we started talking to some of these agency owners, and it turns out they're having the same issues that you are, right? They have like 10 different systems they have to use. It's very fragmented. And so because of the system fragmentation, everyone's having to enter data multiple times. It's all manual entry, which means it's really messy. It makes collaboration really hard. You can't all work together easily in a single system. It makes reporting difficult because of this manual entry of data. And it also makes commission payouts and reconciliation hard. Like all of these things are hard and they really shouldn't be. And so after talking to all of these agencies, we actually created a wait list to see, is there really interest here? Is there like a there? And what was it? Like a few hundred agencies signed up to this wait list with like basically zero marketing. It was like an email. And we're all right. There is something here. It is worth, building this single platform to bring everybody together and eliminate a lot of these inefficiencies.
And I'll hand it over to Brad here in a second. I think that kind of win-win-win is so powerful. And like when we see those, we try and capitalize on it. When we saw the need from agency owners and you talk to advisors, and because the agency owner has that system fragmentation problem, the advisors have to do all this extra kind of meaningless work. I mean, they had to do it to get paid, so that mattered, but like it wasn't adding value to their business to spend 20 minutes typing in these details to a form. And so being able to like bring those two systems together, create this vertically integrated experience is like going to be such a game changer for the industry. And we're super excited about it. Molly, you talked a little bit about the why. Brad, like talk us through a little bit of like what is the agency product today, and like what are some of those kind of key things for folks that are listening?
Yeah, I like to think about it kind of in three categories. So, and this largely reflects the order in which we ship to them. So the first thing, like the first core piece of the agency product is actually just being able to provide Tern as a platform that agents are using today through your agency at a reduced cost. If you have well, lots of agents. Basically, as you add more agents, if you pay for your agents as part of your agency, you can lower the price of Tern for those agents. So it's a great perk and benefit to offer as part of your agency. And we've seen different agencies already doing this, where they can just allow their advisors to sign up for Tern at a slightly reduced rate by inviting them to their agency in turn and paying in bulk. And then in addition to providing all of the agent or advisor functionality we have in Tern today, then we layer on a layer of collaboration. So if you need to share content with your agents, things like email templates, common forms, anything that you think will empower them to be more successful in their role as an agent, you can share those things super easily with all of your agents within your agency as part of Tern. And as Molly and David have both mentioned already, you can also now collaborate directly on trips. So instead of just sharing templates, if you need to step in for an agent because they're out of the office, or that like you need to for some reason interact directly with one of their trips, you can easily jump in and do that. And then the last piece is what we've been talking about around commission and reconciliation and reporting. So we've made it super easy for agents who are using Tern to just take any activity or trip they're booking in Tern, mark it as booked, and automatically have those pieces, basically the booking details, reported to you as an agency admin or owner. So you can see everything in one place, all of the booking details, easily reconcile commission, log payments that you're getting from on those bookings, and then know what amount you need to pay out to your agents. There's lots of details in there we might not get into, like lots of configuration and customization to support the like various agency setups we have, but that's largely the three big buckets. You can invite your team, provide the full Tern experience for your agents, can collaborate with templates and actual like trip editing, and then you can do a lot of commission and reconciliation pieces and reporting as well.
So many cool features there. And I think Molly's going to talk about this more in a minute, but that kind of collaboration, the surprise feature on the webinar too, I think really in a lot of ways ushered in kind of a whole new era for Tern. We were talking about this internally, and you kind of reflect on the webinar. I think webinars are pretty hyped if you haven't been on the webinar, but like I think we underhyped the impact of this feature in a lot of ways, and what a big shift it was for Tern and really the industry. If you think about Tern and I think any of these kind of itinerary systems out there, they've always been kind of single player, right? It's like one person laying out the itinerary. And the reality of the world we live in is that planning travel is very multiplayer, right? You've got all these different people that are kind of coming in and working together, whether it's supplier or assistants or agencies that are making this trip happen or supporting it if something happens. And with collaboration, we're really introducing that. So Molly, I would love to just hear kind of a little bit of your take on what went into this feature. Where do you see this kind of collaboration going over time? And any other kind of thoughts you have on it?
Yeah. So first, a lot went into the feature. I mean, to directly answer that, like the surface area, if you think about, if you're familiar with Tern, to actually plan a trip is really massive. You have the itinerary board with all these different libraries and shared items. You've got your overview tab and a bunch of settings there. You've got pricing. There's just so the activity log of your trip that says, Molly Johnson published this trip, or your client authorized these payments. The surface area and all of the different kind of screens and permissions that are touched by planning a trip is massive. And on the engineering side, not only do they have to unlock these things for non-trip owners, for other advisors in turn if they're invited, they have to make sure it's secure so that it's only, of course, the person who's invited that can access the trip, but also that person can't access things they shouldn't, right? They should only be able to do very specific things when invited to that trip. So that piece alone was just so important to get right, and really to take our time and make sure we were doing that correctly. And then just from a testing and auditing perspective, just making sure that we're kind of crossing um, or checking the box on all of those things in a really secure way. Um, and then so like there's all of that, and then there's also just simple things that we just need to make sure to get right in the details. So things like, if you don't have two-factor authentication set up on your account, you should not be able to see, credit card authorizations and credit card data, because you need that level of security on your account as a collaborator. So that's something we had to build specifically for this project, where we already enforce it at an account level to use credit card authorization. But suddenly, if you're on this trip, that's not your trip in your account, we have to have this like other additional layer. So yeah, just a lot of detail and surface area, honestly, that made it difficult, but as you said, just very, very worth it, because it's such a game changer. We know how much this matters for agencies to start. As an owner of an agency, you need access to all of the trips that your agents are planning. Especially if they go out of town or they're sick and you need to jump in for important client communication or things like that. But also just to kind of keep tabs on, what are all the trips, in my agency going on? How are they doing? Are they, checking off, key needs for each trip, and are they on track to plan them effectively? We know you have a bunch of new agents on it, often that you're training up, and you're making sure to keep tabs on it and things like that. And then going beyond agencies, this matters for a lot of other people. Many people work with a VA. Many people will collaborate with, a close advisor that they work with, or, outside of a formal agency. And so, yeah, just unlocking this is going to be absolutely huge. It has been huge so far. And we're kind of only getting started in this area, which is also really exciting. So we're going to build the ability to collaborate around tasks and really any of those tabs that you're used to seeing in trip planning. So workflows, automations, tasks, all of those types of planning. And then being able to share and collaborate on your contacts, we know matters a lot. So we'll be building that. And then in the future, looking even further out, you can imagine collaborating with, DMCs, tour operators, people who aren't necessarily advisors, but in the real world, again, as David said, you are working with people on these trips to plan these trips. Why not enable that to happen in turn, instead of having to do all this like manual emailing, copy and pasting off PDFs, and where it's kind of a mess. So a lot of really fun things coming here in the future.
I love that. I that last part you mentioned is like kind of make this joke when I'm talking to people. It's like, if we can play a role in ending collaboration by PDF, like that is going to be a good thing, right? Like the idea that the most efficient way to collaborate is emailing PDFs back and forth in 2024 is just wild. So stay tuned for more on that. That was I think one of the your biggest structural changes, but there's so many other features. There's so many other features we're building on the agency side. Brad, you alluded to kind of those click-through mock-ups that you spent so much time building in preparation for the webinar. Talk to us just a little bit about like the supplier payment flow and kind of how you thought about laying out that experience for taking a payment from a supplier and being able to kind of reconcile it and kind of bring that to life for us.
Yeah, and I'll actually go back to the very beginning in all of our agency conversations, a little behind the scenes, like Molly and I and other folks on the team interviewed tons of agency owners, asking them about this reconciliation flow from the beginning. The thing we heard over and over again is like, it starts with this, well, ideally, it starts with this nice statement you get from a supplier or your host agency that has, each line item for like, this is the commission you're getting paid for this booking. Here's all the details. That's the ideal flow. We know that's not always the case, and that sometimes can be just a check you get in the mail, and you're like, I have no idea where this money came from or who it's for, and I have to go track down like which bookings this should be associated with. So this has been on our mind from the very beginning of the agency feature set that we've been working on. But we didn't start there. So we started kind of from the other angle, which is when I have a list of bookings in front of me, when I know all the things my agents are expecting commission for, being able to go through those bookings and see which things you've already received commission for, log payments, even multiple payments for those items today, and making sure that you're reconciling everything they have reported, you can make sure you're getting that commission. But that leaves out half the story, which is if you're getting paid commission from suppliers that you need to pass on to your agents, sometimes those agents haven't actually put those bookings into Tern or whatever platform you're using. And so this completes that story to make sure that you can look at both sides. What is everyone expecting that I'm aware of on the booking side? And then what money have I received from the supplier that I need to make sure finds its right home, find the right booking to kind of pay that out down the line to the right agent with the right split, et cetera. And so, yeah, this is that other piece, making sure that you can start with that supplier payment, log every single line item that you're aware of, track unclaimed bookings for those items that your agents maybe haven't logged in Tern or just didn't click mark as booked, and then allow you to follow up on those unclaimed bookings and make sure that eventually your agents get paid out for that commission that you've already received, and you just need to make sure it finds the right home.
So cool. And it was so fun being able to demo that and just watch people realize like what an impact this is going to be in their agency operations. And this is something we'll continue to add more and more sophistication to. I mean, there's like a really cool AI application layer, I think, long term here. And so it's really neat. But I think maybe kind of wrapping up this like webinar thread, and then we'll move on to some of the other updates, believe it or not, that we've made even in addition to that. I think our goal with Tern is to be the business in the box for your IC advisors. So you as an agency owner can deliver Tern as an incredible benefit to being a part of your agency. It's going to streamline their workflows, enable them to surprise and delight their clients, and really be the only system that they need to manage their travel business. And at the same time, that's going to give you immediately the data that you as an agency owner need to manage your business, paying out the commissions, being able to reconcile the supplier payments. And by integrating those two, we think we unlock a level of efficiency that's going to give Tern agency partners and their advisors a huge advantage in the market in terms of being able to grow their business. And so this is very much just the beginning. As with all of our features, we're going to continue to double down on these. But I want to switch gears now to just a couple of the other updates that we've made. And I'll kick off with an update on currencies. This is something that is often easy to overlook, but it comes up a lot in our support conversations, actually. Not surprisingly, travel is global. We've got advisors planning trips all over the world, and that means that advisors are quoting different prices in all the global currencies. And historically, when we first started Tern, we kind of made a decision that we wanted to support these currencies at a global scale. And so we launched with all the major world reserve currencies, so the US dollar, the pound, the euro, and we were using a service from the European Central Bank for that. And so that's how we were able to get those daily conversion rates. If you're a user of Tern, you send a price to your client in another currency, we'll actually show them as of that day what the conversion was. And so it's a really cool feature to be able to help your clients understand what that price is going to be when it actually shows up on their statement. But what we heard from a lot of advisors was like, hey, I need more currencies. And we were running into this limitation that the European Central Bank, the service that they use, didn't provide enough breadth. And so this was a largely behind the scenes change where we partnered with a new currency platform that covers all the major currencies and actually even a lot of the more lesser used currencies. And so if you go into Tern today, instead of the, 8 or 9 different currencies that we used to support, it's probably like 40 different currencies that there are. So every currency that somebody has written in and asked us about, we've added. If you find one that's not in there, we can add it pretty easily. and we are still doing those daily conversions. So there's a bit of a cost on our side to actually kind of have that service, but it's something that we know is really important to advisors. And so super excited to be making that available to help you, again, kind of better model the world as it actually exists in travel. So that's out. Very excited about that. And then the last thing on my update side, and I'll kind of kick this off. This is like a little bit of a frustrating experience, is we had a bit of an outage this week with, I shouldn't even say this week, it's been, I think, 18 hours or something that it happened. If you've been following the headlines, there was an issue with a security firm that then impacted Microsoft, and Microsoft servers kind of went down for a lot of people, and Delta and American Airlines, and hundreds and hundreds of companies were having issue. Tern actually largely was unfazed. We've kind of, with infrastructure, the way that we've built it, and the partners that we have, we had very little disruption, which we're really proud of. One of our partners, though, TokenX, which we use for credit card authorization to really securely store those credit card details, it's the same platform that all the other kind of travel companies use as well, had an outage. They were impacted by this. And so they've been down for just under, I think, 18 hours or so. And so I just wanted to take it, kind of this moment just to talk a little bit about that. And our teams are monitoring it. Because it's a third party, there's not much that we can do. We're kind of at their mercy to wait. But maybe, Molly, a question for you. How does Tern think about kind of these like partnerships and working with some of these other providers? Like, why didn't we just build a tokenization service? And anything you can kind of share thoughts you have on that kind of build versus buy decision?
Yeah, and I was going to use build versus buy. It's kind of a, I don't know, catchphrase in like product and R&D. And it's like the classic, sometimes in product interviews, they'll like give you a for instance, would you build versus buy this? And there's like frameworks around, should you build versus buy in various circumstances? How I kind of think about it is, we have a tiny engineering team. We have 5 engineers, and we want to be spending our time on the things that only Tern can solve. And so, and there's so much to build. I mean, we have thousands and thousands of requests. We have tons of amazing features on our roadmap. If there are other things that, are difficult to build, there's nothing like specific to what Tern needs to build in order to make it work really well, right? It just needs to work. It needs to like serve its function. And as long as it has, the costs are reasonable, and like the integration, the API is reasonable and easy. In a lot of those circumstances, we would much rather just partner and plug those things in and not kind of spend the engineering cycles, not only building it in the first place, but if it's this company's full focus, they're going to be improving it. They're constantly working on scaling it. They're just spending all of their cycles doing this one thing really, really well, when it would be one of dozens of things that we're trying to support and monitor. So again, it's not like doing this secure storage of credit card details matters a lot in terms of like a Tern specific use case. It just needs to work. And so we partner and integrate in that case.
And other examples, we partner with a company to do hotel content, right? Like, it doesn't make sense for us to try and scour every single website and try and like build all this hotel content. So we partner. Same with cruise content, right? Like, it's just not where we want to be able to deliver the service. We want to be able to do it reliably, securely, in a way that's always improving. And so it makes sense to partner. And the benefit of that is we get to move really quickly. I think it's one of the best times to be building software in history, because there's so many of these different services that can be plugged in. But every once in a while, right, there's the things happen and there's an outage. And so that's the kind of drawback. And so that's kind of where we're at. So I'm glad we got to talk about that. And hopefully that just brings to life a little bit for folks that are listening, kind of how this works and kind of what's going on behind the scenes and what we're, in control of and what sometimes we're not. I know we're almost at our kind of 30-minute target, and maybe we're running even a little long. So maybe let's kind of wrap things up with our classic, what are people excited about for the week? And Brad, maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, gotta love classic on week 2. We're really.
This is a long-established precedent. People are really waiting for the "What are you excited for, Brad?" They've listened to one episode, maybe, right? So here we
are. Yeah, I think what I'm honestly most excited for is just being able to ship a lot of the things we've been working on planning and designing behind the scenes over the last couple of weeks. So we've got so many cool projects kind of on deck where we've been spending so much time and energy getting the details right, interviewing customers, like making sure it's going to work. And we're like, oh yeah, this is it. And now we just like have to do the work to actually like bring it to life and make sure it functions. And again, it might not seem like the most exciting thing, but really looking forward to just like seeing like being able to actually interact with some of these new features like flight updates, like uh, individual like agent reporting, commission reconciliation. There's like lots of things there where we've invested a lot of time and energy in the design details, and now to like actually see those things working in live and getting them into people's hands, I'm just really looking forward to. Just a lot of work that I'm proud of and excited to see it. Yeah, be out there in the real world.
So excited.
Molly, what about you?
Yeah, I gotta say, flight status updates. Not only do I get like probably either on a user call or in just an email about this every single week, like without fail, I get asked about flight status updates. But as if you caught the last podcast, which like plug, it was great. Brad talked about just how beautiful the designs for it are, and like anytime I see it in our testing environment, I'm just like, "Ooh, this is so pretty! I can't wait to like actually test this." And starting next week, I should be able to actually get my hands on it and test it and sign myself up for a bunch of flights that I'm not going on and get all the delay notifications. Hopefully, it's like, well, not hopefully, but I hope there's some delays so that I can test this easily. So.
There's real
You're
people
just
on
getting
those
all
flights,
the
but
worst
like
parts
yeah.
of travel.
Yes.
I know I'm not actually wishing for delays, but it's gonna happen. So
Yeah.
I just can't wait to test that feature and get it out. It may not be fully out next week, we'll see, but very imminent and excited to test it.
Yeah. I'm really excited, and this is another plug. Speaking of which, like we just talked about the webinar that we held for agencies, and we I think have the closest time between webinars in Tern history, and that we are doing another one on August 7th, focused on kind of all the IC focus or visor updates. So flight statuses will be kind of formally unveiled then. The kind of bunch of stuff that we made updates on the itinerary. We, as of this week, just got some pretty exciting kind of breakthroughs in terms of our AI functionality. So we'll be talking about how that's going to be taking another leap forward. So there's just so much, and it's like very much kind of the prep for that. And so I'm excited to do the work to be able to kind of unveil all of that on August 7th. So if you haven't registered for that, you can go to the Tern.travel website. You can register. You won't want to miss that. And with that, that concludes our second ever Flight Path podcast. So this has been really fun. It's successful. I can now travel the country and just work out of my car. I think it worked, right? So this is fun. New office. But Molly, Brad, always fun doing this. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.